Morning, grade 8s. We're going to go on to area of a circle today, but before we do, I want to do just a quick review of circumference. Now, we had that little quiz yesterday, and many of you did incredibly well, but it's important to know that what we're doing, it also follows some sort of pattern. And you need to see that so that when we do today's area, you recognize that, okay, that looks exactly like the circumference, just one more step. So when we did circumference, the things we do know, the formula is circumference equals pi times d. We know that circumference is the distance around the outside of a circle. Might be the perimeter if you were talking about a square or a triangle or a rectangle or other shapes. But when we do circles, we're going to call it circumference. And we know that pi is a value that is equal to 3.14 that we need in our formulas. So if I have three circles here, I want to break down what we did with circumference. The first one we did was if I just gave you the circumference if I gave you the diameter. And remember the diameter is across the middle of a circle, across a circle through the middle point. So if we were to do this one here, we would simply put in our formula, because that's where we always start. We fill in and substitute all the things that we know, and then we would just simply multiply this one, and it would be 31.4. Let's say I made that meters, and that would be meters. And that's the first type of question that we did. Now, after doing a bunch of those, we tried to make it a little bit more difficult, only the fact that you had to recognize that something had changed. The second part we did was where the book or myself only gave you a radius. And a radius is half the distance through a circle through the middle point. So if I give this one, let's call it 3 meters. Again, we start with the same formula, c equals pi d. I know there is another formula out there with radius in it. I don't want you using it at the moment because it's very similar to the area formula. And I have found over the years that people make a ton of mistakes. So what you have to do before we get to this question is recognize, hey, I need the diameter, but they only gave me the radius. I cannot proceed until I get myself a diameter for this question. And the diameter all the way across is simply twice what the radius is. So now that I know what my diameter is, I can go ahead, substitute my pi, substitute the value of my diameter, and do my math. And when we calculate that out, it's going to be equal to 18, need my pen back, 18.84 meters. And that's the second set we've done. So the first set was where I needed the diameter, and I got it. It was straight out. The second one, I needed the diameter to fulfill my formula, but I only had the radius. So you had to recognize that you didn't have what you needed and had to go out and get it. And it's not much harder. And the third step is the hardest one, but you guys were doing really well. And remember, because it's very, very similar to algebra, it actually is algebra because we're working backwards through a formula. If I was to give you the circumference, if I was to start by giving you the circumference and ask for the diameter, well, in each case, the first place you start with is the formula. When you have the formula, your next step is to substitute what we know. And we know that 100 is my circumference. We know that 3.14 is pi. What we don't know is the diameter. Now when you look at this question, it's an algebra question. It's a one-step algebra question. We have to say, I want to isolate for d. I want to leave d by itself. The diameter is what I'm trying to find. And how are we going to get that 3.14 away from that side? Remember, you have to look what is happening between the 3.14 and the d. We know it's multiplication, so in order to get rid of it, we have to divide it away from both sides. It will cross out here and become 1d, which is exactly what we want. And 100 divided by 3.14 is 31.85 meters. And that's our three types of questions for circumference. We are going to do something similar with area. It's a different formula, but we are going to give you the radius sometimes, we're going to give you the diameter sometimes, and then at the end we're going to give you the area and have you work yourself back through it. So it's going to be set up very, very similar. So let's take a look. So now we're ready to do our area of a circle question. Now remember if I was to draw this circle here, and we were to do perimeter or circumference, it's the distance around the outside of the circle, but area is not the outside. Area is concerned with all of the space inside the circle. So that is what you are going to be finding now, is how much space is taken up inside that shape. Now we had a formula before for circumference equals pi d, but for area it's a different formula. So I will give you the formulas for these on your test. So area of a circle equals pi times r squared. We've done exponents, we've done all this stuff, so it's not a big deal at all. Remember, where do we start each time? We start with a formula. So if we were to do this first one, let me just move a few of these out of the way a little bit. Move you down, move you down. All right, let's start with this one right here. So if we were going to work on these, we start with our formula. Area of a circle equals pi times r squared. And what we do is we substitute what we know. 3.14 is pi every time. We're going to multiply it by the radius squared. Now a big problem that some kids have is they forget order of operations. You have to always use it. We did it in the first week of school because it shows up in our math time and time again. So remember, Bedmus says to do brackets first, and you say, okay, I have to do the brackets first in this question, but there's nothing inside the brackets to do. The next one is E for exponents, and there definitely is an exponent that we have to take care of. So what this will be is 3.14 times 5 squared. Remember, don't do 5 times 2, that is not 10. 5 squared is 5 times 5, and that's 25. Anyhow, now you do 3.14 times 25, and your answer is 78.5 meters. Now because we are doing area and we want to denote an area answer, we put a squared symbol over top of our unit, which was meters. So whenever you have an area answer, you have to put meters on top, or sorry, squared on top of whatever unit you're using. All right, we're going to do a few more questions. They're all the same. Area of a circle, you start with your formula, pi times radius squared. You put in what you know. 3.14 is pi every time, and our radius in this case is 10 squared. Using Bedmus, you know you have to do the 10 squared first, so you write this just like it sounds or just like it appears. You don't change the order, and we're going to be multiplying it by 100 because 10 times 10 is 100. I'm not reaching for my calculator because now I'm just multiplying a base 10 number. It's 2 zeros, so I move the decimal place over 2 to the right. I will get 314 meters, and because this is an area answer, I cannot forget to put a squared sign right there. One last one before we do a little bit of practice with it. Extend the page. All right, here we go. Change colors. Area of a circle equals pi times radius squared. Fill in what you know. 3.14 times 52 squared. Now some people will panic when they see this because 52 will be such a big number when we square it. But numbers are just numbers. Don't fear large numbers. Don't fear decimal numbers. Don't fear negative numbers. So 52 squared is, my pen back, 2,704. Now I have to multiply these together. So I have to multiply that by 3.14. Now I need my calculator and my glasses. 8,490 decimal 56. Because it's meters, because it's an area answer, we have to make sure we put the squared sign there. I'm almost done, but I want to show you where we're going tomorrow, and you should almost guess where we're going tomorrow. What if I gave you a circle and told you what the diameter of it is? I don't care what let's say it's 16 centimeters, and I was still going to ask for the area. Remember before when we did circumference, sometimes you have to look to your diagram, look to what is being asked, and see if you have all the components that you need to do the question. We start with our formula, area of a circle is pi r squared, and we recognize that we don't have the radius. We need a radius for this because diameter will not fit in our formula. You just can't use it. We have to change it. But we know that the radius of the shape is only half of what the diameter is. So it will be 8 centimeters. Once you know that, you're off to the races. Substitute what you know. Multiply it by the radius squared. Do not forget to do the squares first. And do not multiply it by 2. You multiply it by itself. So 8 times 8 is 64. 3.14, try this out, 3.14 times 64 is equal to 200.96. I use centimeters, and we cannot forget to put the squared sign. That's it, that's all. Tomorrow we're going to do a few more like this, and then work ourselves backwards through area using a wonderful button called the square root button. But it's the same steps. So let's get confident in our work today, and then we'll move on to stuff tomorrow.